Hey, so today we're going to be running through a quick introduction to DBT, or Data Build Tool. Now, for the past few years, Data Build Tool, or DBT, has been pretty much everywhere, so most of you will already know what it is, but there are still people and companies and practitioners that don't use it because either they don't need to or they just haven't come across it yet. So we're going to run through a little bit of what DBT is and kind of where it fits in your data stack. We're going to run through a little example of kind of what it looks like and some of its features and functionality that kind of make DBT DBT. And then I'll just run through a few extra bits in terms of like how you might go about looking into it or getting set up and started with DBT. So let's kick off. So first of all, what is DBT? Now, this is a question that comes up a lot, and clearly DBT Labs think so too. So there is an entire page that they have written themselves for you to come and familiarize yourself with all the different types of DBT and kind of what they, in their own words, say it is. But for the sake of this, let's start paraphrasing in our own ways. Now, one of the most common phrases you'll probably come across when talking about DBT is the T in ELT. So what this means is in a extract, load, transform setup, which is bring data into your data warehouse and then do things with it. DBT represents the transformations of that kind of raw data into useful data sets, modeled data, reporting tables, and everything else in between. So you can think of it as the engine that turns your raw data into your useful data. Or to put it a bit more simply, DBT will take your raw data from over here and transform it to over there. But something else you'll find out as soon as you start digging into DBT and its documentation and all the resources that are out there for you, you'll find that there are various flavors of DBT. So let's take a quick look at what they are and the main differences between them. Now, the kind of 2 to 3 versions of DBT you're likely to come across are DBT Core, which is the OG. This is a Python-based kind of SQL templater that you can use as a CLI, deploy pretty much however, wherever you want. It's free, it's open source, but as you're probably about to guess, it's not going to be as feature-rich and quick to set up as some of the others, but it is still pretty quick to set up. So in terms of giving DBT a go and getting familiar with it, it's definitely a good place to start by jumping into the repo, installing it, and having a bit of play around with some of your existing kind of SQL pipelines or things you would like to build. Next up is the DBT platform, or otherwise known as DBT Cloud. Now, this is DBT Labs' kind of SaaS offering. They will run your DBT jobs for you. They have some kind of built-in scheduling. They have some collaboration features for you to share across teams. And it includes a web-based kind of GUI and IDE to do everything in. So it's kind of like your one-stop shop for all of your DBT related things. And finally, probably the newest version of this is DBT Fusion, which is built by DBT Labs again and written in Rust. Now, this is where the line starts to blur a little bit, where the intent of DBT Fusion is to kind of merge DBT Core and DBT Cloud / platform into like one unified experience. So whether you're in CLI or whether you're in DBT Cloud, you kind of interact in the same way. There is also a free version of this. So if you're just getting started with running any of this, you could install DBT Fusion locally and just start from the newest thing. So that's also an option for you. So what does a DBT project look like? Well, in DBT, one of the core features is that every SQL file or kind of data set you create is known as a model. And if we look at this repository, which is an example project built by DBT themselves, we can see a folder called models. Now in here, there's multiple different ways to structure your models, but it's pretty much up to you in how you want to structure your project and ultimately your warehouse. For now, we're just going to look at the structure itself. So if I look in here, you'll see I have a .SQL file and a .YAML file. Now this is pretty common in DBT. Your SQL file will actually do the transformation for you, and pretty much always people will pair these with a YAML file. And this is one of the really powerful parts of DBT, because the YAML file can contain both tests to ensure that your data set does what you say it does, is accurate and verified every time DBT runs. And it also contains documentation, which, lo and behold, is extremely useful. So if we click into the SQL file and have a quick look and see if there's anything funky about this, the first thing we're going to notice is these crazy little curly brackets. Now, this could look like Ginger, kind of is a bit like Ginger, but this is kind of the core part of how dbt builds its lineage by using the source and the ref function, which you'll see later on, to kind of say, read from this table. And that pretty much is the only changes you need to make to raw SQL to get them to run in dbt. So nice and easy to get started with. And if we take a quick look at the YAML file, we'll see in here, it describes my data set. So it describes the name of it. We have a description, we have the columns, and we actually have some tests for these columns. So every time we run something like dbt test or dbt build, we're actually going to verify that the customer ID in stage customers is both never null and unique, which is pretty powerful. So those are kind of three of the main features of dbt: is the ref and source functions, the models, and then the tests and documentation. One that I kind of touched on is Lineage. So I'm just going to take a quick look at that. So this is what the Lineage looks like. Now, dbt has, under the hood, used all of our ref and source functions to figure out which models depend on which. Now, this project isn't the most complicated, so it's nice and clean and easy to read, but you should probably aspire for yours to look a little bit like this in terms of cleanliness. So we can see that raw orders feeds into stage orders, which ultimately feeds into the customers table. And it gives us the ability to actually come down here and start filtering these based on things called selectors, which is what dbt uses to decide kind of what to run or what to do with. So if you think of your project as a whole collection of models, then selectors can be things like run everything that depends on the customers table, or build everything that creates the customers table, and things like that. But on top of the Lineage, what this actually is the dbt doc site. Now, this is one of the probably original attractions to dbt, is that you don't only write these YAML files and they sit in your GitHub repo and nobody ever sees them. dbt comes with a built-in documentation site that you can generate as a HTML file and host wherever you like for people in your business to use and read, and actually be able to look at column level understandings of what is in these tables. You can search through it, you can browse through it, whichever you prefer. You can even come in here and get the complete compiled code to run the SQL directly without having to use dbt. So really useful feature. So as you can probably guess, what we're really saying here is that dbt brings software engineering practices to the data space. It brings us version control of our SQL and our kind of transformations. So the underlying magic that happens in Tableau dashboards full of custom SQL is now documented and tested and deployed, as it should be. We have documentation. We can easily force people to add docs when they add new models and so on. So no random data sets that nobody knows why they exist or how they ever came to be. And finally, we have collaboration in the fact that not only is this easy to work with by having a shared code base, but it's in SQL. So analysts can get involved. It's not just engineers anymore. Anybody can kind of contribute to dbt projects. Now, just to take a quick look at the ref function we mentioned earlier. As we can see, this is a basic dbt model. It looks very much like a normal SQL query, but the difference is we have this ref function calling our tables, or as you may have guessed by now, these will be other files in the dbt project. So stage orders will be another file off stageorders.sql somewhere, stageorders.yaml, and as will stage customers. Under the hood, dbt is taking the name stage orders and your configured credentials to essentially figure out where that table is in your warehouse or view or materialized view or whatever it is. This doesn't mean it's just convenient for writing the SQL, but it means you can apply these transformations to different locations, different warehouses, as long as the schemas are broadly shared without having to rewrite new SQL, re-add new files, or ultimately create a lot more code, which is pretty cool. But is dbt relevant for me? Now, one of the core things when running dbt is, will it run in the warehouse I have available? Now, DBT has this notion of adapters, but you can basically think of these as different versions of DBT for different warehouses. So if you want to know if DBT can run on your warehouse, come to their pages and start browsing around and see if there is an existing adapter for it. Trusted adapters are kind of ones that are verified by DBT Labs. They're like, absolutely, we support these. You can rely on them. So it's all the very core databases, the things that you would expect to see, things like BigQuery, Snowflake, Redshift, Databricks, anything like that will likely have a trusted adapter. You can use it. And they'll also list out which kind of platforms it's available on. So some of them are just in DBT Core, some of them are on DBT Cloud/platform, and some of them are even in Fusion. If yours isn't listed here, there are kind of community maintained adapters for databases such as DuckDB, which you can still use. It's obviously just like at your own risk a little bit. So now you've had a very quick whistle-stop tour of what DBT is and where DBT might be used. It's really kind of up to you to think about how you're processing data in your org at the moment, or perhaps you're doing it on personal projects, and whether DBT really fits into that and gives you the kind of tools you need to really trust your transformations in your data warehouse. This obviously saves also pulling it out into something like a container, running transformations and putting it back, so it may even be cheaper for you. From here, you can really just go online, start looking around for DBT, not the type of therapy, the data build tool, and yeah, get started. Take a cloud account trial or install DBT Core or even install DBT Fusion. It's really up to you. So thanks for watching. Cheers.